The story of the JAS 39 Gripen C fighter aircraft in South Africa is one of ambition, technological advancement, strategic necessity, and controversy. When the South African Air Force (SAAF) made the decision to modernize its fleet in the 1990s, the choice of the Saab Gripen stood out as a bold step that promised to elevate the country's air defense capability into the 21st century. The Gripen program in South Africa reflects the intersection of politics, economics, and defense strategy in a country that was emerging from decades of apartheid and seeking to re-establish itself as a modern, democratic state with credible defense forces. Examining the Gripen C in the South African context requires a detailed look at the background of the procurement, the aircraft itself, its role in South African operations, the challenges that have accompanied its service, and the broader meaning of this acquisition for South Africa's defense posture. The origins of the Gripen program in South Africa go back to the mid-1990s, when the country undertook a comprehensive military modernization plan after years of isolation under apartheid sanctions. By that time, the South African Air Force was operating an aging fleet of aircraft, primarily the Cheetah, which itself was an upgraded version of the French Mirage 3. The Cheetah had served faithfully but was clearly outdated when compared with the new generation of fighters emerging worldwide, such as the Eurofighter Typhoon, Dassault Rafale, and F-16 Fighting Falcon. The government recognized that to maintain credible air defense capabilities and regional influence, it needed a modern fighter that could meet multi-role demands in both air defense and ground attack missions. After significant evaluation and political negotiation, South Africa chose to purchase the Saab JAS 39 Gripen, in part because of its relatively low operational costs, its advanced avionics and weapons systems, and the industrial cooperation agreements that came with the deal. In 1999, South Africa signed the controversial Strategic Defense Package, also known as the Arms Deal, which included the procurement of 26 Gripen fighters. Ultimately, the contract was reduced to 26 aircraft, later cut to 26 and then 24, consisting of both single-seat Gripen C and twin-seat Gripen D variants. The Gripen D, with its two-seat configuration, was especially useful for training and conversion, but it retained full combat capability, meaning that South Africa could employ it operationally in the same way as the single-seat Gripen C. Deliveries began in the mid-2000s, and the Gripen formally entered South African service in 2008. The Gripen's arrival in South Africa was a point of national pride. It symbolized the country's re-entry into the international defense community and gave the SAAF a fighter with genuine fourth-generation capabilities. The aircraft was compatible with NATO standards, featured advanced avionics such as the PS-05, a radar, a digital cockpit with hands-on throttle and stick POTAS controls, and was designed for multi-role flexibility. Its relatively small size and single ERM-12 turbofan engine made it cheaper to operate compared to heavier twin-engine fighters, but it still had an impressive performance envelope, capable of reaching Mach 2 and operating at high altitudes with significant agility. Its weapons integration included modern air-to-air missiles such as the Iris-T and the Beyond Visual Range Meteor, as well as a variety of precision-guided munitions for air-to-ground strikes. For a country like South Africa, which had not fought a high-intensity air war in decades, the Gripen represented a leap into the modern era of combat aviation. Operationally, the Gripen C fleet was based primarily at Air Force Base Makado in the Limpopo province, where they replaced the Cheetah aircraft. The aircraft were intended to serve multiple roles, providing air defense for South African airspace, supporting peacekeeping operations on the continent, participating in training and exercises with foreign partners, and symbolizing South Africa's ability to field a credible air force within the Southern African Development Community (SADC). The Gripen has taken part in several exercises with both regional and international partners, including exercises with the Swedish Air Force and other NATO countries. One of the high-profile deployments occurred during the 2010 FIFA World Cup, hosted by South Africa, when Gripen fighters were tasked with providing air policing and securing the skies against potential threats. Their presence demonstrated both to the domestic public and to the international community that South Africa had modern capabilities to protect major events. However, the Gripen program in South Africa has not been without its challenges. One of the biggest issues has been the high cost of operating and maintaining the fleet, particularly in the context of South Africa's broader economic and political situation. While the Gripen is marketed as a cost-effective fighter compared to its rivals, the reality for South Africa has been difficult. The SAAF has struggled with budget constraints, which have limited flying hours, training opportunities, and overall operational readiness. At times, reports have emerged that a portion of the fleet was grounded due to lack of funds for maintenance and spares. For a modern fighter aircraft, regular flying hours and continuous training are essential to maintaining pilot proficiency and combat effectiveness, and the limited availability of resources has raised concerns that South Africa is not fully exploiting the capabilities of its Gripen fleet. Another dimension of controversy relates to the original procurement deal itself. The strategic defense package became the subject of significant political scandal, with allegations of corruption, bribery, and mismanagement surrounding the arms deal. Critics argued that South Africa, facing pressing social and economic issues such as poverty, unemployment, and inequality, could not afford such an expensive defense procurement. The Gripen, as part of this package, was caught in the political firestorm, and its reputation in the public eye has often been tied to the larger arms deal controversy. While the aircraft itself has proven to be capable and advanced, the shadow of the procurement process has continued to shape perceptions of the program within South Africa. Despite these challenges, the Gripen has remained a cornerstone of the South African Air Force. Pilots have consistently praised the aircraft for its agility, advanced avionics, and reliability. The Gripen's design philosophy, emphasizing ease of maintenance and rapid turnaround, has been particularly valuable for South Africa, where resources are limited. Saab has also emphasized industrial cooperation, with the deal including technology transfer and participation by South African defense companies such as Denel. This cooperation was intended to strengthen the domestic defense industry and provide long-term benefits beyond simply acquiring new aircraft. In terms of regional security, the Gripen fleet gives South Africa a qualitative edge over most of its neighbors, many of whom operate much older aircraft or have limited air capabilities. This regional advantage is important for South Africa's role as a leading power within Africa and for its participation in peacekeeping and regional security operations. While South Africa has not faced a high-intensity conflict requiring full employment of the Gripen's combat capabilities, the aircraft has served as a deterrent and as a visible symbol of national defense strength. Its presence ensures that South Africa can credibly defend its airspace and project power when necessary, even if in practice the SAAF's deployments have been relatively limited. Looking at the long-term picture, the future of the Gripen in South Africa depends heavily on political will and budgetary decisions. The aircraft itself remains modern and is supported by ongoing upgrades from Saab, but the sustainability of the program depends on whether the South African government continues to allocate sufficient resources for operations and maintenance. Without adequate flying hours, pilot training suffers, and the fleet risks becoming a paper capability rather than a truly effective force. On the other hand, if properly resourced, the Gripen could remain a cornerstone of South Africa's air defense for decades, as the aircraft has the potential for modernization and integration with new weapon systems. Ultimately, the JAS 39 Gripen C in South Africa represents a mix of promise and difficulty. On the one hand, it is an advanced multi-role fighter that gave the South African Air Force a dramatic leap forward in capability compared to its legacy aircraft. It has participated in key national security operations, bolstered South Africa's regional influence, and provided a platform for industrial cooperation and defense industry growth. On the other hand, the program has been weighed down by financial constraints, political controversy, and questions about sustainability. The Gripen story in South Africa reflects broader themes about the challenges of balancing defense modernization with domestic priorities in a developing country, and the complex ways in which military procurement intersects with politics and society. In conclusion, the JAS 39 Gripen C has played a central role in South Africa's air defense since its introduction in the late 2000s. It has given the SAAF a modern, capable, and versatile fighter, able to perform air defense, ground attack, and reconnaissance missions. Its acquisition was a milestone in South Africa's post-apartheid military modernization, but it has also been deeply controversial due to the arms deal scandal and the high cost of sustaining operations. The future of the Gripen in South Africa will depend on whether the country can resolve the tension between its defense ambitions and its economic constraints. Regardless of these challenges, the Gripen remains one of the most advanced aircraft on the African continent and a symbol of South Africa's effort to maintain a credible and modern defense force.